You'll see this. Well, we're talking about a variety of stuff. Everything from Super NES Classic to the Telltale video game, Guardians of the Galaxy, and apparently only my, issues with it. I mean, there's other people who've had issues, but... to wrapping up from the Steam sale. Jawbone, the Bluetooth company, going out of business.
Which sucks.
Now, I hadn't realized, but apparently they had branched out more than into audio. They fitness trackers and I supposed Bluetooth speakers, because hey, that's Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth headphones. They're not for me. I prefer just wired everything for speakers and stuff, but there's a market. There's definitely a market. I could see having one sitting on a shelf in my bathroom if I wanted to listen to music while I'm showering or whatever, but for general purposes, it's not for me. But I guess I suppose it would have just been natural for them to move away from just, your standard wireless headset into, stereo speakers and whatnot.
They weren't really going...
Apparently, they've just been going downhill and downhill and downhill with their customer support, and basically just poofed off the map about a week or so ago. Emails not being answered, people having their fitness trackers break, all the way going back to November, not getting appropriate answers back on things. It's been a long time coming, and I can't say honestly that this is the first... I can't say it's the first company that's ever done this. A Jawbone spokesperson had no comment, because you really expected to hear from them at this point. I mean, I realize you're a newspaper doing your due diligence, and if you're a serious journalist, you should reach out for a comment, but the company is gone.
So, I mean, their website is still up and running, which...
just didn't bother to pay their webmaster or webmistress to update. No one cares. It's just done. So on to brighter and hopefully more positive subjects. We can move on to a topic that I've heard numerous things about going back many years, back to when American NTSC, and we're talking America only, television signals, back to when we went fully high definition in digital television, when most of the analog signals shut off. I mean, there's a few analog stations, there's special rules for them. When this happened, some of the analog signals were repurposed. Some EMS, emergency companies, ambulances, fire, police, etc., got to take advantage of the newly available bandwidth. You could broadcast Wi-Fi or maybe cell service over these stations, over these, what they're now referring to as white spaces. And it came up numerous times over the internet, over many years, and just nothing has ever come of it. Oh, it's come up again finally. Microsoft wants to use these TV frequencies for internet. I believe they're starting to want to use them in places where you can't get reliable high-speed internet, where people only have two options, either slow as the 90s dial-up, or almost as bad, satellite services such as HughesNet, where You still have to have a phone line hooked up. To my knowledge, this was the last time I checked a few years back. I'm not going to go Google Usenet. You still have to have a phone line hooked up. Something to do with the latency you get between the ground and the satellite going out to space. Usenet isn't fun. I used to work at a summer camp, and when they had their computers early on, they had a lounge for the staff to go to that we could get on, talk to friends, email home, whatnot, and it was just slow going. I mean, it was just only a hair better than dial-up. I remember well into the days where you had cable internet and you could get on video chat on America Online Instant Messenger, and I had a friend who I went on video chat with, and it was just watching her try and it was funny, actually. I called other people over to see it. It's like, hey, I'm on vid chat. Oh, why would you do that? Hey, are you a glutton for punishment? Yes, it's actually pretty hilarious to watch. So, Microsoft's plan is to bring these out. This is the spectrum below 700 megahertz. These go a lot further than obvious Wi-Fi signals we have. The lower the spectrum, farther they go. They want to do 12 experimental projects in 12 states over the next year, with the goal of adding high-speed internet connectivity to 2 million more people by July 2022. There's people who take issue with this, namely that interference with other television signals is going to be a problem. The fact that there's not going to be enough bandwidth for this really to work right. And just people taking the issue that Microsoft should have bid for this when it went up for sale in the first place. In this country, we're being held back by our own infrastructure and the fact that our own companies don't want to build stuff. I personally encourage any company who wants to roll out more options for the American people to have better internet, even if it's just in rural areas. There's no wrong. There's no way this is a bad thing. Even if it's just experimental to start with. The internet should be considered a utility to everyone, just like power, gas, phone. It should be considered basic for everyone to have. And I realize we've somewhat moved away from home phone. I don't have a home phone anymore. But internet has come in to take place of that. It started in the phone space, and now most of us, most Americans you think of, have a cable line or a DSL, UVerse, Verizon Fios. If you're really lucky, Google Fiber. Really lucky people. Our next subject, SNES Classic Edition. Another NES Mini, just like last year. Nintendo's going to roll out, I believe, at the end of September. And there's a multitude of games on it. Let me see if I can find the game list quick. But then the NES went off the rails. The NES Classic went off the rails, and people started scalping them, and they weren't available anywhere. And it just really took off more than anyone ever would have imagined. So now, You would think that pre-orders in the United States sell out like that. 2 seconds, and there's been no news. There may not be any pre-orders. Which means that, yes, you may be out there at the end of September waiting in line at the store to make sure that you get your SNES, in whatever weather it may be, overnight until that GameStop, that Best Buy, that Target, Walmart, to lay open and they have them. And, one of the real reasons I want it, besides, the list of games, which is a fine list of games, and I ain't gonna mention, obviously Star Fox 2. It's never released. What really interests me about this, and what I really hope for this one, besides the fact that you're going to get another controller that has an in-piece that's compatible with the Nintendo Wii, with the Wii U. I kind of wish it were compatible with the Switch, but that's, Nintendo probably does not want to keep beating a dead horse and keeping Wii controllers alive for a third generation. You get the controller, it's an SNES controller, and you can plug it into your Wii, and then use it with your virtual console games on Wii, which will be pretty nice. You could take the original SNES Classic, and you could hack it, and put games on it. Because, of course, the first thing when people like me bring this home, well, what can I do with this thing? Well, Nintendo anticipated this. When people went and dumped the code and looked into the firmware of this thing and tried to see what they could do, they found a message that said, "This is the Hanafuda captain speaking." That's referring to Nintendo used to be a playing card company. They used to make Hanafuda cards. This is the Hanafuda captain speaking, launching emulation in 3, 2, 1. Many efforts, tears, and countless hours have been put into this jewel, so please keep this place tidied up and don't break everything. Cheers, the Hanafuda captain. It's a fantastic little message that Nintendo knew exactly what they were getting themselves into with this system. So, people found that you could put more games onto this console and essentially load up about most of the Nintendo game library onto it. Which, at the moment I found that out, I was just like, wow, I guess when stock clears up with this thing, I'm going to get one. Well, egg on my face, it's probably never going to happen. Unless, I get really lucky and somebody gets really dumb at a tag sale a few years down the line, I'm never going to see one of these. That being said, on the other hand, in looking back into this, and I will provide links to the threads where I found these, and no, I've not found a place you can buy one anymore because they got taken down. I guess I was too slow to the draw on this one. I didn't know even to be looking. A few Chinese bootleggers have decided to sell their own knockoffs of the NES Classic with the same Nintendo Wii connectors, and the words are off center for Nintendo Entertainment System and on the buttons, but more or less it looks like a viable system. Now I'd like to see footage of these, and I think eventually these people are realizing, you can't get the real thing, but there's a market for it. Someone will buy this. And these were available off of Chinese or Japanese or Asian import sites. Wrap up and aftermath of the Steam sale?
Yeah, so what did you end up buying from the Steam sale?
I ended up getting the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Journey Down Part 2, Cities Skylines Deluxe, which may or may not have some of the DLC. A Vanishing Ethan Carter, which includes the remaster. A couple of the Lego games to fill in my collection, because I'm stupid nutso over the Lego games. The Steam Link and controller, because it was on a reasonably decent sale, and these sort of systems interest me, even if they're not very mainstream. The Escapists, that's another one. I got the remaster of BioShock. My biggest disappointment, notice I say disappointment, not regret, regret buying the game. The story has been fantastic so far. My experience with the game... So Guardians of the Galaxy, a Telltale game, is obviously just that, a Telltale Games game. Telltale Games, if you're not familiar, is a bunch of developers who were formerly of LucasArts Games. Got a little peeved that they couldn't make any more Sam and Max games. So they took themselves, they left the company, they got the Sam and Max license, and then they got a few other licenses and began to make games. I believe the first time they ever showed up on my radar, it's not Sam and Max, it was Homestar Runner series of games.
Oh yeah, I remember
Strong
those
Bad,
games.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those were classic. That was one of the other ones I played. Telltale Batman, which gets something right that I don't think a lot of incarnations of Batman get. He's a detective. He's the world's greatest detective. And you solve mysteries like, oh my gosh, Alfred's been taken somewhere. We gotta find out what's going on around here. What happened? Where did he go? Let's examine the clues. Let's use all of the gadgets. The majority of their games, with the exception of Jurassic Park, was supposed to be blah. So people, I noticed there were frame rate issues with The Wolf Among Us on PS3. And I just chalked it up to the fact of, well, it's a port to PS3. It was probably, as is rarely done actually, it's probably programmed first for the PC, brought it over to the PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 was allegedly notoriously hard to program for. Maybe that could be part of the issue. But people complain left and right of frame rate issues, and that was due to that was on certain hardware, and that was due to the Telltale engine that they used for these games, and that they've been using for many years, and I guess they've just been updating it over the years. And people said, oh, yeah, Telltale's Batman's a good game, good plot, but I can't play it with the frame rate issues. And I never noticed any of that until Guardians of the Galaxy. And I started the game, and it just was stuttering, and the mouth movements weren't syncing up, and it looked like a bad Godzilla dub. So obviously, I'm guilty as charged, way bad at this. I don't update my drivers for my graphics card.
Well,
Usually doesn't matter unless, it's, I bought this new game and there's a specific game ready, NVIDIA driver for it. So the first thing I did was, alright, I'll exit the game, bring it up to date. I did that, nothing. Turn the settings down, nothing. Restarted the computer, nothing. Opened my computer, grabbed the compressed air, sprayed out the dust, which I'd, actually done like a week before. There really wasn't much left in there. Nothing. Pulled the card out, reseated it, nothing. Opened up, well, hang with me on this one, because you might remember this game. Opened up Quantum Break,
Oh,
which
wow.
has been, if you've watched the news over the past few years with gaming, had notorious frame rate issues when it came out. I was one of the few who could run it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew exactly how to do it, and I looked up the articles, and at the time I backdated my drivers, opened up Quantum Break, ran flawlessly. And I know Quantum Break is one of those games that can pretty well saturate my 970 to the point where there's not much more wiggle room. It'll run the game just right at nearly full settings. I think it's nearly. Maybe I could crank it up more now. I don't know. Honestly, need to go and finish that game off again. And it was running flawlessly. Because the first concern was, is my graphics card wearing out? Is this an issue? No. It's just the game and just me. Because no one else seemed to be, or not many people seemed to be complaining about it. And I run a GTX 970 on my computer. And my processor is an Intel 4770, not the newest PC, but it hangs with the best. You know, it's okay. So, it should have been more than capable of running this game, but Telltale, if you're listening, maybe it's time. Maybe you need to release the Telltale Tool 2. That is tough to say. Maybe Telltale Tool 3? I don't know. 4, 5? I'm unfamiliar with your update process. But with that, I think it's time to go.
Okay.
And we'll see you soon. I promise we will try and get these out more often.
Yep.
It's just life, jobs, stuff has gotten in the way. I'd love to say we'll be back in a week. I'd love to say we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back as soon as we can.
That's it.
Yep.